Look, I know how this sounds. I really do. You've already made up your mind, haven't you? You're sitting there, judging me, ready to tell me I'm a terrible person. And maybe I am. I'm not saying I'm not. But you don't know the whole story, do you? You don't know what it's like to be suffocating, to be drowning in a kind of perfect, suffocating love that slowly, quietly, strips away every last bit of who you thought you were. I need you to hear me out. Just give me a chance to explain, to give you my side of things, before you sign my moral death warrant. Because this wasn't some casual, malicious act. This was about survival. My survival. My name's Clara. I'm 31. And yeah, I spent weeks with a random guy, lying to my boyfriend, Mark, about where I was, what I was doing. And now? Now I'm alone. Completely alone. Blocked everywhere. And I guess I deserve it. But it still hurts. God, it hurts. Mark and I, we were together for 11 years. 11. We started dating in high school, for Christ's sake. He was my first everything and I was his. We grew up together. Or at least, we were supposed to. He was the golden boy, you know? The one everyone loved. Solid, dependable, kind. He remembered my favorite coffee, my mother's birthday, the obscure band I mentioned once in passing. He cooked. He cleaned. He held down a steady job, bought us a little house. He was the kind of man your parents dream of for you. My friends adored him. His family treated me like their own daughter. Everyone used to say, Mark is such a catch, Clara. You're so lucky, and I knew I was. But somewhere along the line, being lucky started to feel a lot like being trapped. He was so good. So unbelievably good that it almost felt like a challenge. He was attentive to a fault. Sweet, always. His stability, which everyone praised, became this suffocating weight on my chest. It felt like being encased in concrete, poured with the purest intentions, but concrete nonetheless. Every morning, he'd wake up at the same time, make coffee, toast, and read the same section of the newspaper. Every Friday night, it was our designated date night, usually a quiet dinner at our favorite Italian place, the same table, the same order. Saturday mornings were for the farmer's market, Saturday afternoons for yard work or errands. Sundays were for family brunch, always at his parents' house, always the same predictable conversations. There was no spontaneity, no wild card. It was a perfectly choreographed dance, and I was starting to feel like a puppet, moving on strings I hadn't even realized were attached. I started to crave something unpredictable, something messy, something that didn't involve discussing our 5-year plan or debating the merits of different retirement funds. I wanted to feel a spark, a jolt, not just the warm, comforting hum of a perfectly maintained appliance. I started getting irritable, snapping at him over little things. He'd just look at me with those bewildered, hurt eyes, and I'd feel a fresh wave of guilt, followed swiftly by resentment. Why couldn't he see? Why couldn't he understand that this perfect, predictable life was slowly killing me? I tried to talk to him once, vaguely, about wanting more adventure or excitement. He just smiled, squeezed my hand, and said, "We'll plan a vacation, honey." Somewhere exotic, like a new destination, would fix the chasm that was opening inside me. Then came Leo. He wasn't a vacation. He was a hurricane. We met at a random art installation downtown. I was there alone, escaping the perfectly curated weekend Mark had planned for us, a home improvement expo. Can you believe it? Leo was everything Mark wasn't. He had tattoos, a wicked, cynical sense of humor that bordered on offensive, and a laugh that scraped like gravel but made me feel utterly seen. He was a musician, or he called himself one, drifting from gig to gig, living purely for the moment. He looked at me like I was a puzzle he wanted to solve, not a painting already finished and hung on the wall. He talked about philosophy, about art, about the meaninglessness of existence in a way that felt thrillingly dangerous and profound, not just a rehashing of the week's events. The first transgression was subtle. A shared cigarette outside the gallery. A late-night text exchange that spiraled into hours of conversation about our deepest fears and desires. It was innocent, or so I told myself. Just a connection, a friend. But then came the coffee, the first secret lunch. The way he listened, truly listened, made me feel like I was finally exhaling after a decade of holding my breath. He told me I was beautiful, but not in the gentle, adoring way Mark did. Leo's gaze felt like a challenge, a dare to believe it myself. He called me fire and chaos, things no one, especially Mark, had ever called me. Mark called me sweet pea and my rock. I wanted to be fire, not a rock. That's when the lies started. Small ones at first. Meeting a friend for coffee, working late, girls' night, Mark never questioned me. Never. He just trusted me implicitly. And that trust, instead of making me feel guilty, somehow made me feel powerful. Invincible, even. Like I was pulling off the greatest heist right under the nose of the world's most trusting man. The thrill of it was intoxicating. It wasn't just the thrill of Leo's attention, it was the thrill of my own audacity. I was breaking free, pushing boundaries, and no one knew. It felt like a secret life, a vibrant, illicit garden growing in the shadow of my perfectly manicured public existence. I convinced myself I wasn't hurting Mark. I was just exploring, discovering myself. What was wrong with that? I deserved to be happy, to feel alive. And if that meant a few white lies, a few clandestine meetings, then so be it. It was a small price to pay for the rush of feeling seen, truly seen, for the first time in what felt like forever. Mark, in his endless goodness, just kept showering me with love and affection, which I, in my twisted logic, saw as further proof of his blissful ignorance. He was so wrapped up in his perfect little world, he couldn't possibly fathom that I might want to burn it all down. He'd bring me flowers, plan special meals, even when I was distracted, distant, my mind miles away, replaying conversations with Leo. He'd say, "You seem a little off, honey. Is everything okay?" And I'd just smile, give him a quick kiss, and say, "Just tired, love. Busy week," and he'd believe me. Every single time. The escalation was swift, almost dizzying. A secret kiss turned into secret nights. One night turned into a week of stolen moments, then 2, then 3. I started telling Mark I was going on a wellness retreat with my friend Sarah, who, bless her heart, covered for me without truly knowing the extent of my deception. I'd pack a small bag, say goodbye to Mark, and then meet Leo at a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, or sometimes, just at his dilapidated apartment. We'd spend days talking, laughing, exploring parts of the city I'd never seen with Mark. He taught me about old jazz, introduced me to hole-in-the-wall diners. It was raw, immediate, exhilarating. It was everything my life with Mark wasn't. I fully convinced myself that this was it. This was real love. The kind of love they write songs about, not the kind you build a mortgage on. Mark's love, stable and constant, now felt like a prison. It was the lie. Leo's volatile, unpredictable passion, that was the truth. I was finally waking up. I was finally choosing me. I pictured a future with Leo, a messy, uncertain, but deeply passionate future. We'd travel, create, live bohemian lives, unburdened by bills or expectations or the crushing weight of domesticity. I was planning to tell Mark, to break it off cleanly, to start my new, authentic life with Leo. I just needed to find the right moment, the right words. I truly believed I was doing him a favor, too, letting him find someone who appreciated his perfect, predictable world. But the universe, or karma, or whatever you want to call it, had other plans. Turns out, Leo wasn't quite as invested in our authentic life as I was. One evening, after I'd spent nearly a week with him, ignoring Mark's increasingly concerned texts, Leo got a call. He went quiet, then snapped, "Yeah, I'm with her." "What about it?" He hung up and turned to me, his face suddenly closed off. "Look, Clara," he said, avoiding my eyes, "this has been great. Seriously. But my ex is back in town. And she's, pretty intense. Possessive, you know." My stomach dropped. "Ex," I whispered. "I thought you were single," he shrugged, running a hand through his hair. "Mostly. We were on a break. You know how it is," he said it so casually, as if a few weeks of intense, soul-bearing intimacy was just a break. He wasn't breaking up with me, not exactly, but he was making it clear that I was, and always had been, a temporary distraction. My beautiful, messy, authentic future shattered into a million tiny, sharp pieces. The fire I thought I was turned out to be just a flicker from someone else's match. And now, that match was gone. I went home. Not to Mark, not immediately. I wandered around for hours, numb, shell-shocked. Where did I go wrong? How could I have been so blind? I finally dragged myself back to our house, late, disheveled. Mark was waiting up, perched on the edge of the sofa, looking pale and worried. My heart twisted, a brief, sharp pang of guilt. "Clara, where have you been?" he asked, his voice tight with fear, not anger. I opened my mouth to spout another lie, something about Sarah, but the words caught in my throat. I was so exhausted, so broken. I just stood there, staring at him. He stood up slowly. "Don't bother, Clara," he said, his voice strangely calm, flat. I know. I knew? My mind reeled. How could he know? Had Sarah accidentally slipped up? Had Leo called him? My panic started to rise. "No, what, Mark?" I tried to sound innocent, but my voice wavered. He walked over to the coffee table and picked up his phone. He didn't shout, he didn't cry. He just held it out. It was a screenshot of texts. My texts. To Leo. The intimate ones, the ones planning our stolen nights, the ones where I complained about Mark, about our boring life. My blood ran cold. It wasn't just a few texts. It was a whole conversation log, spanning weeks. Then he pulled up another screenshot, a photo. Me and Leo, laughing, arm in arm, outside the art gallery. How? How did he get all this? "I've known for a while, Clara," he said, his eyes finally meeting mine, and there was no bewildered hurt, only cold, hard certainty. "Weeks, actually. You got sloppy. Not sloppy enough for me to notice at first, but sloppy enough for my sister to. She saw you with him, a few times. She followed you. Just to be sure," she said. And then she showed me the proof. Everything my friend Sarah had been the loyal enabler, but Mark's sister, bless her vigilant heart, had been the loyal gatekeeper. My whole world tilted. He hadn't been ignorant. He'd been watching. He'd been gathering evidence. Systematically. While I was living out my grand, self-serving fantasy, he was meticulously building the case against me. The humiliation was crushing. "I wasn't going to say anything," he continued, his voice still that chillingly calm monotone. "I wanted to give you a chance to tell me. To see if you would. But you never did. And then you left for this wellness retreat and just stopped answering my calls." I knew then. He put the phone down gently on the table. "I don't want you here anymore, Clara. I've already spoken to a lawyer. The house, the accounts, everything. It's all going to be split. You can take what you need tonight, but I want you out by morning. And don't bother trying to contact me after that. I'm blocking you everywhere. You made your choice. And now I'm making mine." He didn't yell. He didn't plead. He didn't even cry. He just stated it, with the calm finality of a judge delivering a verdict. There was no negotiation, no tearful begging, no dramatic confrontation. Just a cold, decisive end. I tried to speak, to explain, to apologize, to anything, but the words were stuck in my throat. He just watched me, that unreadable, distant look in his eyes. I wanted to scream, to shake him, to make him hurt the way I hurt, to make him fight for me, for us. But he simply turned and walked away, into the bedroom, closing the door softly behind him. And that was it. 11 years. Gone. Just like that. The next morning, I packed a few bags, my hands shaking so violently I could barely zip them. He was already gone when I came downstairs. The house felt empty, hollow. My keys were on the counter, next to a note. "Leave them when you go." I felt like a criminal, sneaking out of my own home. My phone buzzed. It was Leo. "Hey," the text read, "heard things got messy. Look, I'm really not looking for drama. Just a heads up, probably best if we don't talk for a while. Good luck," the final nail in the coffin. The exciting mirage had vanished, leaving me stranded in the desert of my own making. The social isolation hit almost immediately. My friends, our friends, the ones who had loved Mark and me as a unit, were suddenly distant. Texts went unanswered. Invitations stopped coming. The few who did respond were cold, their words clipped, their empathy non-existent. What you did was awful, Clara, one friend texted. Mark didn't deserve that. My own family, my parents, my sister, they tried to be supportive, but even their sympathy felt strained, laced with unspoken judgment. My sister, my confidant, the one I had complained to endlessly about Mark's boring nature, the one who had inadvertently enabled my self-pity, looked at me with such pity now that I couldn't stand it. She said, "You really messed up, Clara." He was a good 1 inch, as if I needed the reminder. I tried to reach out to Mark. Just once. A heartfelt apology, a desperate plea for understanding. The text didn't deliver. Blocked. I tried calling his phone. Straight to voicemail. Blocked. I even tried emailing. No reply. He had erected an impenetrable wall between us, and there was no getting through. He didn't want an explanation. He didn't want to hear my justifications. He just wanted me gone. And then the news started trickling in. First, from mutual acquaintances, then from social media, snippets that felt like daggers to my heart. Mark was flourishing. He'd thrown himself into work, got a promotion, started traveling for business, the adventure I had supposedly craved for us. He looked lighter, happier. The worried lines around his eyes were gone. He was smiling in photos, genuinely smiling, with old friends I hadn't seen in years, making new ones. He even started volunteering at an animal shelter, something he'd always talked about but never had time for. He looked like a man who had shed a tremendous burden. A burden that was me. My life, meanwhile, stagnated. The promised excitement with Leo was a fantasy. The new me I thought I was finding was just a lonely, bitter shell. I moved into a tiny apartment, took on extra shifts at a job I hated, and spent my evenings scrolling aimlessly, watching others live their lives. My grand quest for passion had led me to a quiet, pathetic existence. The only thrill left was the bitter envy I felt watching Mark ascend, while I spiraled. One day, I ran into Mark's mother at the grocery store. I almost turned and ran, but she saw me. Her face, usually so warm and kind, hardened instantly. "Clara," she said, her voice like ice. "I heard you were back in town." I stammered out some weak greeting and apology. She cut me off. "You know, Mark was devastated. Truly. He adored you. We all did. But you broke him. You took his kindness, his trust, and you stomped all over it. And for what? Some flight of fancy? You talk about wanting more, Clara, but you threw away everything good, everything stable, everything real for nothing." Her eyes were blazing. "He's happy now. Really happy. You don't get to be a part of that. You gave up your right to be." She turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, a public humiliation. It was the hardest truth I'd ever heard, delivered by the kindest woman I'd ever known. And then, the final blow. I saw it on a mutual friend's social media. A photo. Mark. And a woman. She was beautiful, vibrant, with a genuine laugh captured midair. They were holding hands. In a later post, she was wearing a ring. A diamond ring. Not an engagement announcement, not yet, but it was clear. He had found someone else. Someone new. Someone who would appreciate the goodness I had so carelessly discarded. He was starting a family, perhaps. Building a new, better life, exactly the one he had wanted with me. It twists something inside me still. Even now. I tell myself I don't regret it. I tell myself I was choosing myself, wanting more, seeking authenticity. That I was brave for pursuing what I thought was real. That he couldn't handle my depth, my complexity, my fire. I tell myself the relationship was a rut, and I was just the one brave enough to jump out, even if I landed badly. I tell myself it's better this way, that we were never truly compatible, that I was destined for something more dramatic. But then, late at night, in the quiet of my tiny, empty apartment, the justifications fall away. And all that's left is the cold, hard truth. I threw away a good man, a stable home, a loving family, and a beautiful future for a fleeting moment of cheap thrill and a fantasy. And now I'm alone. Completely alone. He's happy. I'm not. And that, I suppose, is my lasting legacy. That's what I get for wanting to be fire. I burned everything down, including myself. What a complete and utter mess I made of it all. What a complete and utter mess.